Welcome back to Chaos Corner. It's your old buddy, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy. And I tell it like it is. I'll say that to say this. Here in the lounge at Chaos Corner, live to tape for our continuing series on the history of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Now, fans, you can go back to the network, WWE Old School on the peacock, if you will, and you could follow along. This will be episode 4 in the new series here on Chaos Corner. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted. No one else does it like this in the IWC. Hop in the time machine with it's me, the GOC, and we're going to go back to February 2nd, 1976 from Madison Square Garden to continue our series on the history of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And again, as I said, you can follow along episode for episode. I'll give you the dates. And don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms. And you know what they are. In real time on Twitter, at Big Daddy GOC. And the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Follow me on Instagram, the Guardian of Chaos. My 2 accounts on Facebook. That's right. There's 2. Jay Brony. That's right. Jabroni, you get it, and Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. Follow me on Gitter, Gab, Truth Social, Rumble. I cover it all in the IWC, whether it's the WWE, AEW, MLW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, the NWA, or my home at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Fans, I can't thank you enough for being here. The first weekend of February 2023, after we snapped out of that cold snap of minus 20 plus degrees with the wind chill. It's back up into the 40s and 50s this week here in the New England tri-state metropolitan northeast area. A little crazy out there with the weather, right? So stick with me here as I bring you the best in professional wrestling history and sports entertainment. All right, fans, as I said, this is episode 4 on our new series of following the history here. We're going to go back, as I said in the previous segment, February 2nd, 1976. And here we go. The first bout on that card, and remember, you could follow along on Peacock or on the network and to see where we are, because this is invaluable experience. I said it on the first 3 episodes here on the new series. You can't get to where you're going, where you are, unless you know where you've been. We have to go back in order to move ahead here on the Guardian of Chaos, in the time machine, if you will, live to tape. The first bout here on February 2nd, 1976, let that sink in. And how many years ago we're going back? At this point, I'm 12, 13 years old, so you can see from the generation and the influences in my nearly 3 decades as a pro wrestling manager where my thoughts and abilities and history and memories came from as a historian, as a scout, as someone being an insider in the business, and being able to grow up and watch, whether it be from the Hartford Civic Center, Madison Square Garden, the Boston Garden, Toronto Maple Leafs Gardens, the Nassau Coliseum, the old New Haven Arena and New Haven Coliseum, here in the shadows of Titan Towers. Let that sink in about the history and the hotbed of the greater New England tri-state northeast area. The first bout, and I'll admit in the cards that I've covered so far, we started off in 1973, we went to 1975, we are here in 1976. The first couple 3 matches here were what we would consider jobber matches. But again, I refer to in the first 3 shows here on the new series, this being episode 4, on the simplicity of the moves, on keeping it simple, stupid, on selling, on the emotional investment from the crowd reactions from the different ethnic groups and what you would call minority groups, migrants, immigrants, whatever you want to call it back in those days, and just the sold out garden and all races, religions, creeds, colors, backgrounds, all together as one in unity, brought together by the world of professional wrestling. Let that marinate, fans, as I say it here on the network all the time. and just the fans at ringside and the crowd reactions, whether it's the Puerto Ricans for Victor Rivera, whether it was the Italians for Bruno Sammartino, the Polish for Ivan Putski, the Blacks for Bobo Brazil, again, the Puerto Ricans, the Hispanics for Pedro Morales, the Germans for the legendary Waldo von Erich, who I don't even think was German, or for the Native Americans, as they called Indian J. Strongbow. Just the different ethnicities and what brought in and what the crowd really played to, and what the organization of the WWWF played to in the territory days. Even when you brought in someone like the Golden Greek Spiros Arion and their reactions that he would get, or even going into the 80s when you would bring in the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter. So back in the 60s and 70s, they really pushed those gimmicks to the edge. And personas probably wouldn't be able to get away with it in this day and age, the way everybody is, flaked out on certain things and everybody gets offended. One person gets offended, but that's another story for another time. The first 3 bouts I'll run through quick here. Again, a little less to be desired in some of the bumps. Although I was talking about the simplicity of the moves, a simple body slam or a pile driver or a clothesline or a snap mare or a hip toss, all meant something back then and led into pins, not nowadays where they use the word banger. And again, I respect everybody. The athletes are great here in 2023. The product is what it is. But all these finisher false pins, if that's the way you say it, how they say it, and the new demographics here in 2023. I am the old man brand, the over 50 demo god. But let's hop back into the time machine, as I said, and talk about this card from February 2nd, 1976, Madison Square Garden. Again, on the commentary, the solo commentary is Vince Jr. Your ring announcer for this event, and for a lot of them at the Garden, the legendary Buddy Wagner from back in the day. The first match, 1 fall, 20 minutes. Fabulous Frank Monty, 245 pounds, in good shape back in the day, that's for damn sure, from San Francisco, California, to take on one of the original and one of the best workers and jobbers, to use that term, and I don't get offended by it, back in the 70s, would be Pete Sanchez, 240 pounds, from Cleveland, Ohio. And of course, as I said, Monty was in great shape back then. Didn't take the best bumps, I'll admit that. Very aggressive, with the boots to the face and the clotheslines and the forearms by Monty, as to the different style of Pete Sanchez back in the day. Now, this is what you wouldn't have in the big cards for the WWE, AEW, and the like, in the ilk of 2023, and what we will call jobber matches or opening bouts. Pete Sanchez, known for his drop kicks and side headlock takeovers and head scissors. The bout was a little slow, a little sloppy. Remember where we are in 1976. 9 minutes and 21 seconds with a simple boot to the face, followed by the pin and the win for Fabulous Frank Monty. He threw Pete Sanchez into the corner with the old Irish whip, and then right into a pin. Keep it simple, stupid. 9 minutes, 21 seconds. Your winner in the opening bout here in 1976, Fabulous Frank Monty. But again, what you would expect in an opening job or match or bout. I meant to say match and bout at the same time for back in 1976. The next matchup here from February 2nd, 76, the Garden. On the network, Francisco Flores, considered the Mexican champion at the time, recognized by the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, 245 pounds, from Mexico City. As I said, the different ethnicities and backgrounds and cultures from back then in the 70s, even into the 80s, they really pushed it, and it really hit home from the city and the different melting pot that was the New York City and through Ellis Island, as we all know in history. And what a pop Francisco Flores would get, just like when El Olympico from Mexico City was brought into. And I keep referring to that because that's how simple it was and how it went over and sold with the crowd and the different ethnic groups that made up the consistency of the fans in the arena. Nothing like today. Francisco Flores against from the Canadian Yukon, wearing the raccoon hat. He's the grandson of one of the strongest men in the world, accompanied by the Hollywood fashion plate, an all orange sequence from head to toe, even his shoes. Classy Freddie Blassie. Anyone? Can anyone guess who it was? That's right, Louis Cyr. Let that sink in, fans. Go back to 1976. So that was the second bout here. Again, in the opening of jobber matches here in the 70s, when the pacing and the placement of the card back in the day, it wasn't always the championship match or the main event that went on last. You would have your championship match or your main event and then 2 or 3 bouts afterwards. So just the different placement in the time frame. Again, this is 40, 50 years ago, fans. So here we go. Louis Cyr, Francisco Flores. Again, the trademark headbutts and the big splash by Francisco Flores. Another big guy in great shape. And again, champion in Mexico City. And Louis Cyr, a large guy. Not a scientific match. I told you on this particular card, this particular episode from the Garden that I'm following along on the network. A little sloppy these first couple of matches as far as the talent. I haven't really seen that in the first 3 events that I covered back here in history, and then of course the typical moves by Louis Cyr back in the day as being a strong man. You know, the headbutts to the sternum, to the abdomen, just different things and moves and power moves and the simplicity of the moves that I already said, whether it be an abdominal stretch, a snap mare, an Irish whip, a simple body slam or a clothesline. They meant something and they led into pins, not like all the false finishes that we have of today. Just totally different product. And I wouldn't say it was boring back then. It was a lot of in-ring work. It was a lot of emotional investment, especially from the crowds. If you heard the crowd reactions when certain workers had come out back in the day with, I'm repeating myself, Sammartino, Putski, Victor Rivera, Pedro Morales, and then on the other side, the heat that someone like a Spiros Arion or Killer Kowalski and different guys that I've already spoken about, Waldo Von Erich, Ivan Koloff. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than what we're breaking down here on the network. The Guardian of Chaos on the YouTube channel. Thanks for being here on a Sunday. It is Sunday. So here in this match, Louis Cyr, Francisco Flores, again, the first couple of matches were sloppy. Frank Monte, Pete Sanchez, I already mentioned it. This match, 9 minutes, 16 seconds. Cyr with a simple shoulder breaker, followed into the pin, and there you have it. Pretty simple. Again, a little sloppy these first 2 matches on this card, but it gets better as time goes on. Your winner, Louis Cyr over Francisco Flores. The third matchup here from February 2nd, 1976 in the Garden. And thanks for being here, fans, for being here as I go through the history of the WWF. This is a new project I'm starting here on the channel, and I'm actually looking forward to it. The third match, a young Kevin Sullivan. That's right, the Taskmaster, the evil one, if you will. Kevin Sullivan in the Garden from Lexington, Massachusetts. 235 pounds, and boy, was he put together, Sullivan. I don't think this was his debut. Sullivan as a face, very fiery. Definitely took a punishment here from the Golden Greek, 260 pounds from Athens, Greece, Spiros Arion. And if you remember in the first 3 episodes, I was going through the trilogy from 75, where Arion was an unbelievable heel going against Bruno Sammartino, who was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion in that year. He held it for many years. And just the trilogy that went through from the Texas death match to the Greek death match, even when Arion had his foot on the ropes, but still Sammartino walked away with the pin and the win, even though Arion had his foot on the ropes, leading into that third bout that Bruno won by submission. And what an unbelievable trilogy and series of matchups between Arion and Sammartino. Go back and check that out on the network and here on the channel. So here, 6 minutes, 24 seconds. An atomic knee drop by Arion on Kevin Sullivan into a pin. Again, the recurring theme I've said several times through the first 3 and 4 episodes now: simplicity of moves, simplicity of selling, the emotional investment, the psychology, the showmanship to have the beginning of the matches going back and forth, and the body language, and just keeping it to the bare bones of pro wrestling. I know you have to grow with the business and be innovative, but simple knee drop, 6 minutes, 24 seconds. Your winner, the Golden Greek, over who would go on to be a legendary Hall of Famer himself, or at least he should be, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan. We move on to the next bout here on February 2nd, 1976, Madison Square Garden, a.k.a. Also known as the Felt Forum, right there in the Garden. The King, that's right, the King, 6'9", 300 pounds, the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd. What a heel, fresh out of his NFL career. Let me tell you something, there weren't many like the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd, whether it be in the ring or on the mic. He was the ultimate heel, and boy, did he get a reaction. The King, the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd, as he takes on, from Italy, 260 pounds, former Worldwide Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion, Dominic DeNucci. What a matchup this was at the Garden. And you know how Dominic DeNucci back in the day would fire up, as all the faces would back in the day. Clearly, again, I've said it several times on these new shows, this new series, you knew who good versus evil was. You knew who the face and the heel were. Clearly defined lines, not like today when it's heel against heel or face against face. You don't know who's what, how to identify them. No beginning of opening up with the showmanship, and just my opinion. I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like I did here with the first 3 matches, jobber matches that were sloppy for 2023 or for 1976. So what a matchup, and the stalling by Ladd, and even by the workers back then in the time, as I said, working the crowd, getting the crowd invested into it, and just the reactions were genuine. Kayfabe was still alive, and boy, did Ernie Ladd and the workers of the day play the crowd there at the Garden, eating out of their hands. Unbelievable. Ernie Ladd, as you know, 4-time All-Pro, and what a transition. There wasn't many that did it better than Ernie Ladd as a transition from football, the NFL, into pro wrestling. You could think of other guys like Wahoo McDaniel and so on and so forth. I can go down a whole list of guys, Bill Goldberg, everybody that's made transitions from back in the day to current day from different sports into the world of pro wrestling, which is totally different. So let's cover this match quickly. Again, Ladd, the Big Cat, if you will, the King, with that omnipresent and signature taped up thumb that he had in the back in the day, the right thumb. OG, the chops, the slaps, the forearms, the stomps. Again, I've said it, the chokeholds, the pressure points, using the foreign object. Stuff that really sold as a heel, and not all the craziness that you see today in today's business. Again, you have to evolve. I respect it. Bigger, faster, stronger. The business changes. I get it. But how long will the current stars last? Where will they be when they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s physically, and the toll that it takes? Stuff that you have to think about. And again, DeNucci, we know with those signature right hands, the way he fired up, the crowd behind the Italians there in New York City, unbelievable. But a simple pin, using the taped right thumb that went on to be the Asiatic spike, so on and so forth, that people have used, everyone from Terry Gordy to Umaga and the Samoan Dynasty, and everyone in between that has used that taped thumb. A right thumb, obviously, by Ladd, to the throat of Dominic DeNucci. 11 minutes, 55 seconds. Ladd pins Dominic DeNucci with his foot on the ropes, 6'9", his foot on the... So not only did he use a foreign object, a taped thumb, but what a match and a story this was between DeNucci and Ladd. Classic face, unbelievable heel, thumb to the throat. There you go. Pin, 1, 2, 3, 11 minutes, 55 seconds. The King, Ernie Ladd, one of the best that did it back in the day. One of the best in history, in my opinion. Over another super popular, ethnically popular grappler, and one Dominic DeNucci, who really was and is a legend. We go on, we travel on here. Again, I have my notes, as you can see, fans. I'm always prepared. Although it's unique, unedited, unscripted, you have to do your due diligence. Thanks for being here on episode 4 in the new series, The History, the OG of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, with the OG and the IWC. We move on to the next match, one fall, 20 minutes. The Super Pole from Krakow, Poland, 275 pounds. And again, I talk about ethnicity, minorities, the melting pot of the city and the garden, and how pro wrestling was as a melting pot, which it should be still to this day. The reaction and the crowd and the insaneness for Ivan Putski on Polish power, unbelievable. And again, I already said whether it was Jay Strongbow with the shaking and the dancing and the hulking up, but actually the Jay up, the Indian up, Jay Strongbow way ahead of Hogan, and no selling and coming back and getting pounded on and shaking it off. And Chief Jay Strongbow long before Hogan. Same thing here with Putski, playing to the crowd, whether he was singing on the microphone pre-match or afterwards, grabbing beers from the crowd and drinking it in the ring, and then going a la Hogan to each side of the ring long before Hogan was in the business, and Stone Cold would crack him open and have a beer in the ring. Let that sink in. I know I'm repeating myself. I'm saying the history. This was years before these guys were even in the business. History repeats itself. Again, I'm going to say that to say this because I tell it like it is. You cannot get to where you want to go or where you are without knowing where you came from. It's pretty simple in all walks of life. So we get on to the Super Pole, Ivan Putski going up against, from Moscow, Russia, 265 pounds, being escorted by the one and only Captain Louis Albano, would be with the Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff. What a matchup this was from February 2nd, 1976 at Madison Square Garden. Ivan Putski against Ivan Koloff. Again, the crowd reactions to the Russian Bear and the Super Pole. I told you it was a melting pot in pro wrestling back in the day, a melting pot in the city, a melting pot represented in the crowd, where everybody was family and everybody got along and everyone was brought together for a same common good and purpose, sports and pro wrestling. Bringing together everyone, which is what we need in today's day and age in life. Jesus Christ is coming back soon. Don't be caught dead without him. Let's get on to the Super Pole and the Russian Bear. And again, I can't mention enough. Go back, fans, and see the reactions for people that come to the ring. Whether it be Bruno Sammartino, whether it be Victor Rivera, whether it be Pedro Morales, whether it be Bobo Brazil, Ernie Ladd, Killer Kowalski, Ivan Putski, Ivan Koloff, Spiros Arion, Waldo Von Erich, and Dusty Rhodes, superstar Billy Graham. You'll never see anything like this. Even the preliminary jobber guys got reactions and sold it better than they do in today's age. This really was, what a power matchup. And again, the big right hands, the shoulder blocks, the lockups, the test of strength, the stomps, the power matchup just in general, using the turnbuckles and the headlocks and bear hugs, and even the crowd in unison chanting, bullshit, bullshit, here in 76. This was a wild matchup. I don't know the full time, but it ended up in a double countout, and it was declared a draw. A draw. When's the last time you seen a draw in this day and age, this century? Double count out turned into a draw. Ivan Putski and Ivan Koloff. Fans, you have to watch this matchup and go back to this era, the golden era. When I was a child, when I was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and you see where the influences and where my passion comes from back then, not today. Although I still watch the product and do the live watch-alongs, but you guys know that. So you can understand why the first 2 or 3 matches, with the talent and being a little sloppier and going in order, and you see the stacked card after this. The next bout after Putski and Koloff, which ended in a draw, for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation title, one of the greatest rivalries in the history of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, pro wrestling in general. From Arizona, that's right, Paradise Valley. Superstar Billy Graham against Bruno is Uno, the number one Italian from Abruzzi, Italy, Bruno Sammartino. Again, the crowd noise. I'll say it again. The crowd reaction, the pop. You won't see anything like it throughout the whole match. People standing on their feet like this is the end-all, be-all. And kayfabe was still alive. Go back and look out the numbers and the sellouts and the crowds. You will not believe it, I'm telling you. For the title, the psychological game on the workers back in the day, whether it was even Buddy Rogers in the 50s and 60s, when pro wrestling took over television in the 50s and 60s, the begging off by Superstar, a man ahead of his time. And again, just the psychological game and the selling and the working of the crowd and playing into the crowd long before the bell rings or you lock up. That's what even the jobbers, the opening bouts, the mid-carders, the guys on top, the guys underneath, they all did it. And Billy Graham was one of the best at it. You know, using the ropes, begging off, being this big jacked up guy, but selling it like he's a coward. I mean, just really it was unbelievable. Again, using the ring posts and the turnbuckles like they don't use them in today's business in 2023. And again, the stomps and getting caught up in the ropes and using that as a weapon. Do you see any of that? A simple bear hug by a power man. You just don't see it anymore. The lockup, the test of strengths, holding it there, working it. You can say it's wind, it's stamina, it was boring. No, that's storytelling. Instead of the 3-second attention span of today's business, I'm just giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And maybe I'm an old dog. Maybe that's the way it is. I'm not trying to be that way and sound bitter. I love and appreciate it all. But just what a difference to go back. And again, Billy Graham in this one, the Superstar busted open, a crimson mask. And this bout, and when do you rarely see this in the storylines? You look at the different storylines and the moves and what sold and how it ended and the different decisions and even the 20-minute time limit or 2 out of 3 fall matches. This is a rarity in today's business in 2023. This went 17 minutes and 55 seconds, and the bout was stopped by the referee. I think it was Jack Lotz. Stopped by or maybe Dick Kroll, stopped by the referee due to bleeding because Graham was a bloody mess. Your winner retains the title, 17 minutes, 55 seconds. The one and only, the living legend at the time, Bruno Sammartino. And you know the history. There I am, a 12, 13-year-old boy, 9, 10-year-old boy watching this stuff on the Garden, being able to see it, remembering it, reviewing it now at almost 60 years old, and being able to work with Bruno and taking over his spot for commissioner in the North American Wrestling Alliance. I mean, does it get better than that to be able to see these men as a child and then going on to meet with them and work the same events and potentially even work with them, whether it be Captain Lou Albano, Bruno Sammartino, the list goes on and on, the Wild Samoans. It really was something, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, just all the different guys that I saw and then was able to work with. That's what you get here on this channel. What about that was? And now here's the difference in where I tell you, and I've told to you, and if you go back and watch on Peacock, on the network, on the cock, if you will, no offense, I want to keep it rated PG. You go back and watch it, you'll see that this was the 6th match, and then afterwards, you go basically back to a mid-card match after the main event for the title. 275 pounds from the Isle of Malta, Baron Mikel Scaluna, taken on from Ireland, Irish Pat Barrett. Unbelievable. Something as simple as this. 6 minutes, 44 seconds. The Baron head first into the turnbuckle goes Irish Pat Barrett, which leads into a roll-up and a pin. Something as simple as that. That's right, the Isle of Malta. Baron Mikel Scaluna. How many of you fans out there even know who that is? I remember it like yesterday. Over Irish Pat Barrett, 2 solid workers, 2 guys that were around for a long time, mid-card guys, some guys can call them jobbers, but simple, head first into the turnbuckle, Scaluna with the win over Irish Pat Barrett, which led into the final match of the night, 2 out of 3 falls tag team match. That's right, 2 out of 3 falls, which was almost on every monthly card at the Garden. Bobo Brazil and Tony Parisi That's right, Tony Parisi, whose partner was Luis Cerdan, and they were the Worldwide Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions at the time. But Cerdan had travel problems, got into an auto accident. Something happened on the night of February 2nd, 1976. And Cerdan and Parisi, then tag team champions, could not defend the belts. So, card subject to change even back then, in comes the legendary 285-pounder Bobo Brazil. Wasn't many better than Bobo in his time and in his day, and what a large man. So 2 out of 3 falls, Tony Parisi and the substituting Bobo Brazil against the 400-pounder Crusher Blackwell and the 300-pounder from San Francisco, Bugsy McGraw. And man, was McGraw in good shape back then. So this is 2 out of 3 falls, not for the title because no Luis Cerdan. Parisi and Bobo Brazil against Crusher Blackwell and Bugsy McGraw. And they actually, during this matchup on HBO, again, who knew back then in 75, 76, and split screen in 76 from the Garden. Pretty impressive to see it back that early, and it brings back the memories and the historical of long before how they do it now, picture-in-picture, go to commercials. They were doing it at the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden in 75 and in 1976. So this really was an incredible bout. Bobo, Parisi, Blackwell, Bugsy McGraw, 2 out of 3 falls. The first fall went 7 minutes and 13 seconds. Parisi and Bobo Brazil win the first fall by disqualification. Again, just to see these 4 athletes, and especially the way McGraw looked, and Crusher Blackwell, 400 pounds back then, AWA superstar all over the world, mountain of a man, Crusher Blackwell. To see him in such good shape and nimble and agile back in the day at that time was unbelievable as well. Bobo Brazil, again, jacked at 285 pounds. Parisi was the smallest, but at 245 was like a fire plug. And you remember Parisi and Cerdan were unbelievable tag team champions back in the 70s. So that was the first fall to Bobo and Tony Parisi. The second fall, 4 minutes and 21 seconds. Parisi slams the 400-pound Crusher Blackwell, and then a top rope drop for the pin. That's right. Think about that. Even back in the day, I saw Eduardo Carpentier on the last show that I did from 1975 here, episode 3, whether it be Antonina Rocca, Argentina Apollo, even the likes of Victor Rivera or Pete Sanchez, and even Tony Parisi. These guys were ahead of their time for what goes on today in 2023. So, and very rarely did you see the straight 2-fall victories back then as well. 2 out of 3 falls, usually it was going 3 falls, whether it was ladies matches that went 2 out of 3, I covered that on episode 1, or even the Mighty Midgets I covered on episode 2, 2 out of 3 falls. So if you look at the different pacing and lineups and different matches and outcomes and just the nuances and different things that have changed from then till now, it doesn't get any better than this. And this is my passion, and that's why I bring it to you as a scout even to this day for Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. So the bottom line, Bobo Brazil and Tony Parisi over Blackwell and Bugsy McGraw, 2 out of 3 falls, 2 straight falls. Simplicity again of the moves and the finishes and the outcomes. It doesn't get much better than that. Fans, thanks for being here. That's all I have for episode 4. I'm going to continue with this and try to go in chronological order on the network, on the Old School Network, the Old School videos on Peacock or WWE, whichever you follow it. And I'll still continue. Go to the community page, see all the photos of all the stars I've been with and worked with. I have over 1.7 thousand videos here on Guardian of Chaos on YouTube. You can catch me in real time on my reactions on Twitter. I'm on all other social media platforms at the Guardian of Chaos. And of course on Facebook, Jay Brony, Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. Follow, subscribe, like, leave a comment. We're going to continue with this. We're not stopping. This is what I do. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted. This is like reality TV, a podcast, a TV show, whatever you want to call it. I will put this right up onto YouTube. Follow me. And again, come on back, man. Don't you dare miss it. You're not going to find anybody else. I'm bringing you into my home, giving you a side of Big Daddy that you rarely see. Thanks for being here.